Yashodanandana Brajaja Naranjana Yashodanandana Brajaja Naranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaum Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parvrajikacharya Shtottara Shatta Shri Srimad Shla Bhaishnavinda Bhaktivedanta Samharaj Shla Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namachara Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Shri. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtha Shrimati Radhanath Swamiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtha Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachamini. Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pashtatadi Shatarni. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. We are continuing reading from Canto 3, chapter 27, entitled by Understanding Material Nature, text 15. Manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah. Like this. Manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah manyamanas-tadatmanam anashto nashtavan mrisha nashte hankarane drashta nashtavitta ivaturah. Manyamanah, thinking. Tada, then. Atmanam, himself. Anashtah, although not lost. Nashtavat, as lost. Mrisha, falsely. Nashte ahankarane, because of disappearance of the ego. Drashta, the seer. Nashta vittah, one who has lost his fortune. Eva, like. Aturaha, distressed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. Purport. Only in ignorance does a living entity think that he is lost. If by attainment of knowledge he comes to the real position of his eternal existence, he knows that he is not lost. An appropriate example is mentioned herein. Nashtavita ivatara. A person who has lost a great sum of money may think that he is lost, but actually he is not lost. only his money is lost, but due to his absorption in the money or identification with the money, he thinks that he's lost. Similarly, when we falsely identify with matter, as our field of activities, we think that we are lost, although actually we are not. As soon as a person is awakened to the pure knowledge of understanding that he is an eternal servant of the Lord, his own real position is revived. A living entity can never be lost. When one forgets his identity in deep sleep, he becomes absorbed in dreams, and he may think himself a different person or may think himself lost. But actually, his identity is intact. This concept of being lost is due to false ego, and it continues as long as one is not awakened to the sense of his existence as an eternal servant of the Lord. The Mayavadi philosophers' concept of becoming one with the Supreme Lord is another symptom of being lost in false ego. One may falsely claim that he is the Supreme Lord, but actually he is not. This is the last snare of Maya's influence upon the living entity. To think oneself equal with the Supreme Lord, or to think oneself to be the Supreme Lord himself, is also due to false ego. The translation of the verse again. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost. Like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we continue discussing Kapila Shiksha. He's explaining the principles of material nature here. Understanding material nature to his mother Devahuti. Yes, this verse is very interesting because it discusses how the living entity he feels himself lost. we are lost. Hare Krishna. We are lost because we identify with something we are not, as Prabhupada here explains. And what we are, excuse me, eternal part of God. Yes, this is correct. Is some other thought what we are also? Servant. We are eternal servants, as Prabhupada also says here, and it's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jivara Svarupahoy Krishna Nityadas. Every living entity, if he knows this or not, he is eternal servitor of Krishna. Even the ardent atheist who thinks that he's not believing in God, he's in fact serving Krishna all the time. Yes. But because he doesn't know that he's serving Krishna, he's serving his whims, but everything he has it comes from Krishna. So it's Krishna's energy that he serves. So he serves Krishna. Yes. But as Krishna explains in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yetvanya, there are flies, Devata Bhakta, Yajante Shadayanvita, Tepimameva Kantaya, Yajante Vidipurvakam. They worship only me, in fact. Anyone who worships some other gods, and even atheist has some gods, because he's worshipping, I don't know, some political person or some sportsman or singer or I don't know who, or his own wife or her own husband, whoever. So he worships God, in fact, as Krishna says, but in the wrong way. And the consequence of this is that he suffers. Krishna explains before in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mogasha Moga Karma no Moga Jnana Vichetasa Rakshasim Asurim Cheva Prakritim Mohinim Shita. That if we not worship Krishna directly, then every our endeavor is doomed to be failure. Yes. Mogasha Moga Karmano. Our endeavors are lost. Our work is lost. Our intelligence is lost. Our knowledge is lost. Everything is lost. Yes, and not just that everything is lost, but we take shelter of Rakshasim Asurim Cheva, the Rakshasa concept. That means blood drinking concept. Why this blood drinking concept? Because we try to exploit other people, other living entities for our own selfish purpose. Even if we are vegans, nowadays it's modern to be vegan, but even if we are vegans, we kill, and we are not, if we are not devotees, we kill other living entities for our selfish purposes. So we have blood drinking mentality. Yes. So and it is explained that only way to elevate our consciousness is to connect with Krishna. And because we are Tatashta Shakti, we are not independent. We are always controlled by some energy. Either material energy, Maya, or by spiritual energy, Radha. And this is explained also in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Mahatmanastu mamparta devim prakritim ashita. They take shelter of Devi Prakriti, of spiritual energy. Bhajanya ananya manaso, and they worship me with ananya manasa. Anya means other. Ananya means not other. That means that our only focus is worshipping of Krishna. Bhajanya ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avayam. Why? Because we know that he is the source of every living entity, and he's eternal. He's God, in fact. Yes. So, as long as we identify with this material nature, we are trapped in ignorance and suffering. Yes. Here is interesting example that we think ourselves lost. Many people, they don't think they themselves lost. They think that they're doing quite well, in fact. But the time will come that they will that they will consider that everything they did in their life was waste of time, in fact. What for? They toiled so much for something that goes between their fingers. They cannot keep it. Yes. And we as devotees, we have to be really alert that we don't fall in this trap. We easily, because of our impressions, of our previous lives and so on, we have experiences life after life of this blood drinking mentality. So we tend to exploit things for our purposes. Of course, we because of Srila Prabhupada and Shastra, we know that we are eternal servitors of Krishna. But as long we are not on the transcendental platform, we have this, still we have these impressions. Jai Shri Prahlad Narasimha ki Jai, Lakshmi Narasimha ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So we tend to exploit our environment for our purposes. Yes. And as soon as we are in this situation of exploiting mentality, we feel anxiety. This is the test, in fact. If we feel afraid in our life, for whatever reason, or if we feel envious of other people, that means that we have this blood drinking mentality. As Kapila Muni says also in 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is called Pritak Bhava. Pritak Bhava. Pritak means that we have separate identity from Krishna, in fact. As Prabhupada says, it is separatistic mentality. But this means that we consider ourselves as different from Krishna. And also in Bhakti Yoga, it's not uncommon that we tend to think that Krishna is something outside of us. He's of course something outside, but we are his part, as you said. We are his part. So Krishna is the soul of our soul. Krishna is our super soul, super I. This is I, but like a cell is part of the body. So this cell can say, I am the part of the body. And as we can say, we are part of Krishna. We are, in fact, in this way, we are Krishna. As Lord Chaitanya explains, is Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. We are same with Krishna and different from Krishna. Because we are Anu and Krishna is Vibhu. We are infinitesimally small, and Krishna is unlimited. So to bring our consciousness to this mentality that we are servitors of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas gave us the process of Bhakti Yoga. Yes. So as long we are not on the transcendental platform, our sadhana bhakti, is in fact the only connection with Krishna that we have. There is no other connection for the sadhaka. That means it depends, our relationship with Krishna depends on our seriousness of sadhana. If we chant really with focus, at least we try to chant with focus, and we don't scroll through the phone, that means that we are serious in our attempt to understand Krishna, to approach Krishna. Yes, we forget this usually. Many times devotees forget this, and they catching their rounds during the day just to finish the rounds. And if we finish the rounds, it's okay. We fulfilled our promise for the day, but this is not what we are seeking. We are not seeking just to finish our relationship with Krishna. We are trying to connect with Krishna, in fact. This is why that's why we came here, to connect with Krishna. Especially chanting and reading, and also other programs, especially Mangala Arati, are very, very, and listening, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nashta Preshva Bhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Seva. We should serve Bhagavatam always, Nityam. Yes, and by this service to Bhagavatam, we come to the Nishta level. Yes. And even before we are cleansed, our heart is cleansed. Nashta Preshva Bhadrishu. Even before we are completely cleansed by serving Srimad Bhagavatam and great souls, we come to the level of serious devotional service. Yes, serious bhakti. Nashta Preshva Bhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Bhakti becomes Naishtiki, very staunch. Yes. And only then, when bhakti becomes very staunch, Naishtiki, Tadara Justamo Bhavaha Kama Lobodayasche Chetaritarvidavidam stitam sattve prasidati. Only then we are cleansed of rajas and tamas. Tada means then. Tada rajas tamo bhavaha. Tada rajas and tamas are gone by staunch devotional service, by nishta bhakti. Yes. So this should be, in fact, our daily meditation. Just recently, Kadambakarana Maharaj was asked how to deepen our understanding of Krishna, how to connect with Krishna more deeply, more that we are more aware that we are connected with Krishna, that we are more Krishna conscious. This is the Krishna consciousness movement, not just Krishna worship movement. This is important. That is consciousness involved. This is most important. That because people many times have different rituals, but they are not connected with Krishna, not connected with God. Even if they go to church or mosque every Sunday or something, they do it just because of the ritual. Many of them, majority, in fact. I know because I grew up in such environment. Majority of I grew up in Christian environment, and majority of them went to church just because this was some kind of tradition. But this is useless, as is explained in our Shastra. Completely useless. So Prabhupada came to give us Krishna consciousness, to be aware of Krishna, to be conscious of Krishna. Now, and Kadambakarana Maharaj answered very, very interestingly. He said that we have to come to the basics, and that means come regularly to Mangalarati, very early rising in the morning, chanting 16 rounds in a row without interruption. Yes, reading, regularly reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Doesn't seem something very much esoteric for us who are accustomed to this program, but not many devotees are as serious as Maharaj mentioned. And he said that our ultimate distractor for this process we carry in our pocket. And this is the phone. Ultimate distractor. And he emphasized that if we would like to develop our Krishna consciousness more quickly, we should, at least during our activities, spiritual activities, switch off the phone and put it somewhere else. That we are not tempted by this ultimate distractor. And another interesting thought in another lesson I heard, that he said that we should make our phone a devotee. That this is our first preaching mission, that we make our phone a devotee. And no prajalpa, that means or the phone it's interesting. Yes. So we should end at 8:30, if I understood correctly. Okay. So yes, and why the living entities are trapped in this forgetfulness, in this ignorance, in fact. Do any have any idea? Please. Because we are not attached to Krishna. Yes. And why we are not attached to Krishna? Yes.
As she said, in order, because we have distanced ourselves from the natural life in order to enjoy the other material life.
Yes. Thank you.
We have this, we want to be Krishna.
We want to be Krishna.
That's why we detached from him.
Yes.
Some way, no.
Thank you. Is there any other suggestion? We have selfish desires. Yes, all answers are correct. There's no just one answer correct. In fact, the root cause is our ignorance. Is avidya. And from avidya, that means ignorance of ourself, of our relationship with Krishna, comes asmita. Asmita means asmi is I am. Asmita means that we identify with something we are not. From this avidya, from ignorance, comes identifying with something we are not. Yes, and so we are identified with this body. And Prabhupada's first mission was that preach to people in general what? That we are souls, especially that we are not this body. Pradananda Maharaj said that for the first 4 years, 5 years or something, Prabhupada just lectured on one verse. Dihinos minyata dehi kaumaram yavananjara tata dehantara praptir dirastatra namukhiti. So you're not this body. As a embodied soul passes from childhood to boyhood and middle age and old age, so the soul passes when he dies in another body, and that the enlightened person is not bewildered by such a change. Yes. So because of ignorance, we identify with something we are not. In fact, with the world of material elements. And from asmita comes raga. Raga means attachment. So we are attached to our body. We are attached to our body, but not just to body as we see it. Or gross, we have of course gross and subtle body, but this is not just I and mine concept, but it's much broader than this. We identify with our body and mind, of course, and with our family, with our friends, with our country, with our culture, the way we perceive things, the tastes, the sound, different music, different mentality about the time. For example, if you say at 3 o'clock here in Germany, is special known that it must be punctually at 3 o'clock. But if you say in India at 3 o'clock, yes, that means during the day some it's not exactly at 3 o'clock. And so we have different perception, and we identify with all this environment, with all our world. This is our world, and we are attached to our world. And from attachment to material world, and because, as I was mentioned before, this pritak bhava, this separate identity from Krishna, because of course we don't identify with self with absolute, unless we are Mayavadis. We identify as absolutes, but we forget, in fact we don't know because of avidya, that we are a small fragmental part of absolute. So if we are not transcendental, we of course identify with some separate world of ours, and because of this comes raga dvesha. Dvesha is another stage. It means hatred. We hate everything that potentially endangers our world. Yes. And from raga and dvesha comes abhinivesha. That means a complete absorption in material concepts, and fear of death, fear of losing our identity. Because we are eternal persons, Sachitananda, we fear to lose our identity. And because we feel that we are eternal, but because we are identifying with something which is ephemeral, we are always in anxiety. And we are always in anxiety because we are afraid to lose our environment, our world, what we identified with it. And we protect it very much because it is a part of our identity, not just our body, but also all our world, our family, our children, our husband, our wife, our parents, our friends, our favorite dish, and so on and so forth. Yes. And because of all this, we are lost. We are lost, as is explained here by Kapila Muni and Srila Prabhupada. Yes. Because we are not connected with Krishna, who is the source of real pleasure. Yes. Because we are always searching for pleasure. Whatever we are searching for in this life, or in every life, in fact, also atheists are searching for Krishna. Because Krishna is a relationship with Krishna, not just Krishna per se, as can we say, but with the relationship with Krishna, loving relationship. In fact, without loving relationship, nothing is pleasurable in this world, even in this world. For example, if we would have everything we would desire for our enjoyment, best food, whatever for our enjoyment, cars or boats or airplanes or I don't know what. But if you would be alone in this world, you would be completely miserable. Yes. We would rather than everything of this have a relationship with the bird. If the bird would land on our finger, we would enjoy much more in this relationship than with any of other things. Yes, so that means that we are craving for loving relationship, in fact. But in this world, every relationship is temporary, so brings our suffering, brings us suffering. As Krishna says in 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yehi sansparshara bhoga dukkha yona evati adyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramati buddha. The intelligent person does not seek pleasure in this world. Why? Because everything has its beginning and its end. And it's dukkha yona. It gives birth to dukkha, to the suffering. Every pleasure, the more pleasure we find in this material world, the more suffering it brings us when it ends. Yes, that's why it's common. You may know such people that if wife dies or husband dies, then the spouse also die very soon. I know for many such cases, in fact, from my life. When my aunt died, my uncle, her husband, also died in 1 month or something. And there are also other cases, I know. And maybe you also know this. Okay? So the solution is given, as I said before, by our acharyas, is serious devotional service, serious sadhana. Serious sadhana is our only shelter, in fact. Yes. Mangalarati, chanting 16 rounds in a row without interruption. Maharaj said, toilet allowed. But no other distraction. Yes. And reading and so on. And we will achieve this in association of such devotees. This is also important. Different Shastras explain this, that the association of devotees is very much important, but the devotees who are very serious. If the devotees are not serious, they are the cause of our fall down, in fact, or slackness in devotional service. So we should be very attentive what association we take. Yes, because if someone is not serious and we take his association, his or her association, we say, oh, he's not doing like this, why should I? I'm not a fanatic. So our spiritual life is endangered if we keep not serious association. Okay? Hare Krishna. Is there any questions or comments? Yes?
You mentioned that we have this many identification in ourselves, who we are, what we are. So from where we are until our pure consciousness of Krishna servant, and when we know who our relationship with him, this original. Oh, it seemed like a long way and like many identification. So do we have to like what to say? Ozavestiti.
Yes, mm, to bring in our consciousness.
To realize this our
Yeah.
attachment we do, or is some faster way, like I don't know, to go all through or through all this identification to realize and drop it. So what we are not, or is some faster way, easier?
Bhakti yoga is the fastest way. Sadhana bhakti is the fastest way. Of course, there is a faster way. This is kripa siddha, that we receive mercy directly from Krishna. As for example, a dog who played with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya played with the dog, and he ordered him to sing Hare Krishna, and he sang and he went directly to Vaikuntha. This is faster way, but otherwise sadhana bhakti is the fastest way. Yes, and it's not long. We can make it in one life if we consider that we have impressions in our heart from countless lives. In one life, it's nothing, in fact. 100 years, what is 100 years? If we compare to eternity. Even eternity in this material world is just like one breathing of Mahavishnu. So it's really nothing. Yes, and more serious we are, the faster is our progress, is our understanding, is our realization of this. Yes. Please.
Hare Krishna. So I just was thinking on this point of what Prabhuji made. Because I think there is a big gap between getting the knowledge, okay, we know this body, but having the knowledge doesn't mean so much in this moment if you don't apply the knowledge. And there is, we joining the movement maybe when we're young, or we joined when we were young. In my case, and then okay, first initiation, second initiation, and there you go. And then there's a big gap. What should I do with the rest of my life? And of course we say, yeah, we chant Hare Krishna, follow sadhana bhakti, follow morning program, chanting rounds in one row, but then what? So therefore, I think in the old days, in the days Prabhupada gave everybody also some practical, some engagement where you can apply yourself in, or he said therefore we should establish one ashram Dharma, that at least, or we should develop farm communities, that we somehow or other find some engagement for our life to besides sadhana bhakti, what is around. And I think this is missing nowadays, because we don't have, yes, okay, we do our sadhana and the stuff, but then in between we have to do something for our, we have to earn money or something like that. And this is not supplied anymore in the moment, because therefore devotees have to go outside work, and there they have this association what keeps them, distracts them from their lifestyle. So I think we have to come back to this where we give a broader vision also for life in people who will come, because otherwise what is our relevance to the society? Yes, we give knowledge, but as we know, knowledge alone doesn't mean anything if we don't apply it practically and that realization come. So it was just a thought. I don't know if you...
Yes, it's very important what you said. Thank you very much. Um, in fact, we should see our engagement according to our nature as part of our sadhana. Even if we go to work every day, uh, as explained by Adipurusha here in Simhachalam, that in fact, what I wanted to say, it's doesn't matter. So even if we go to work, we have to have this consciousness that that this I do for Krishna's pleasure, and the money I get, I'll use for Krishna's pleasure. Also our family, of course, but our family, if it raised in devotional attitude, everything is in Krishna's pleasure then. Yes, we have to engage our abilities in Krishna's service. If we don't do this, of course, just sadhana, chanting and reading and attending Mangalarati is not enough. We have to do some practical service also, according to our nature. Everyone has his own nature. Varnashrama Dharma is perfect solution, and it works even in mundane society to some extent, of course not scientifically as Krishna put it, but naturally. So of course it's not beneficial to say you are a Shudra, you should do Shudra work. Or you are a Brahmana, you just worship the deities and have lectures and so on. But everyone should find his inclinations, material inclinations, and engage himself accordingly. Yes, and we should encourage this living according to our nature to other devotees also, especially if we have some position in the society, to encourage and engage them in the service. If we are not engaged in some service, we don't feel really connected. So practical service is very much important. Even if we just commit to wipe the floor or anything, to have some practical service. Yes. And of course, there are many of these services. Even if we just work for Krishna, so that means we go out for a job and spend the money for Krishna conscious purposes, that is also perfection. And as explained by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if we keep association of mundane people at work just for the business purposes, this is not asatsanga. That means it's not non-devotee association, because we don't hang around with them and joke with them and take their mentality, but we have business association, and so if we keep association like this, we are not influenced by their atheistic mentality. So I don't know if this is satisfactory to you.
I think it's a longer discussion. It's not
Yes.
that we have none. I don't know if some more questions are there.
Any other question or comment?
Also ich habe die Erfahrung gemacht, am Anfang macht man das mehr theoretisch. Man soll das so machen, man soll das so machen und dann bekommt man irgendwie eine Beziehung zu Krishna und dann erfolgt ein Austausch und sozusagen der höhere Geschmack. Und der höhere Geschmack, der gibt einem so viel, dass man nachher die anderen Dinge irgendwie von alleine fallen lässt. Also diese materiellen Anhaftungen, die fallen dann irgendwie weg. Krishna arrangiert dann Gelegenheiten, die einen an ihn binden. Und also so war das zumindest bei mir. Und das ist dann so bereichernd, dass man immer mehr, so wie Krishna in der Bhagavad Gita sagt, ich belohne jeden nach seiner Hingabe, so ungefähr, sinngemäß. Und ja, dann kriegt man immer mehr Anhaftung und dann werden auch Dinge von ihm arrangiert.
I'll translate the first part. So Kishori had the experience that in the beginning it's very theoretical. You have to do it like this or like that. But once you develop a relationship with Krishna, there is an exchange, and you develop a higher taste. And when you do this, Krishna arranges opportunities that strengthens the relationship between you and Krishna. And Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita,
Ich belohne jeden, so wie sich mir ergibt. Jeder erntet das von mir, was verdient hat. Je mehr ich mich hingebe, je mehr kommt von Krishna zurück.
Yeah, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the more you give, the more Krishna helps you. Like to develop this relationship. Like the more you, I don't know. Yeah.
Yes. Yata mam prapadanti tam stateva pajamaham. Mama vartmanu vartanti manushyak parta sarvasha. However we surrender to Krishna, so Krishna will respond accordingly.
Exactly.
Yes. And everyone follows his path. Yes, of course. With our sincere endeavor, we get realization, spiritual realization, which is not dry process. And then when we finish our rounds, like in one row, and so we get a stamp, or so you can enter the spiritual world. No, by our sincere endeavor, we develop our relationship with Krishna, and we see his hand in everything in our life. Yes. So and we have really developed relationship if we are serious enough. Yes. Hare Krishna. Mataji.
It was mentioned in the text, or in the beginning of the purport, that the living entity in ignorance, something, it takes himself to be lost. But and you mentioned later that people often, they don't think they're lost. They think it's okay, but and then at some point they come to the understanding that it's all useless, that what they do. But often people, even in the deathbed, they don't think that I wasted my life. They think, what do I do about my children? How can I leave them? Or if some soldier dies on the battlefield, he's proud that he protected his country, and he is not concerned about his soul. So maybe you can comment on this point about how people in ignorance, they feel themselves to be lost because it doesn't seem like they do.
Thank you for this interesting thoughts. Yes, on the deathbed, usually people think that they're not accomplished their desires. So we try to of course, our whole life is molded around our enjoyment, and the death, the process of dying, is of course not enjoyable at all. So whatever we strived for is going away. So in this mentality, our life is lost. Understand? Even if you are attached to our family, to our children, we see that and that they will stay alone. How will they help themselves? Understand? Or we have some high position, very important position. How will this go on? No one can do this beside me, and so on. I don't know how it's on the battlefield if you die. I don't know about his mentality of the soldier. I didn't manage to kill those enemies. And they killed me. What will become of my wife, of my girlfriend? Because they said that Italian soldiers, when they were dying, were calling their mothers "Mamma Mia." Yes, so they're not so happy about their dying. Hare Krishna. Okay, half of the audience already went away. Thank you very much for your attention. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinda